Adorable baby animals that will make your day much, much better. Whether they've got quills, feathers, or blubber, baby animals are known to melt the hearts of even the strongest of men. Just about everyone loves them. That's why, today on The Animal Shelter, we're talking about our picks for the most adorable baby animals on the planet. Let's jump right into it. Number 10. Fox kits. The first adorable baby animal on our list is the baby fox. And no, not a Denari fox or a Southeast African monkey from Madagascar. Around 4 years ago, images of these wide-eyed critters circulated around the internet, but as it turns out, they're just incredibly detailed dolls. Unlike these viral Furby-like fellows, the red fox pup is very much real. Roomy dens are dug when red fox babies or kits are about to be born, and the whole family takes care of them. Otherwise, foxes live out in the open for the rest of the year, and, just like a domestic dog, they'll curl up in a tight circle to tamp down a bed for themselves. Some kits stay with their parents, while others, at about 10 to 18 months of age, leave to form their own family units. Number 9. Octopus. Aquatic animals can be just as cute as land mammals, so that's why the baby octopus is on the list. Although the mother octopus guards her eggs obsessively before they're born, even neglecting food, she's nowhere to be found after that. According to the Smithsonian, this is for a very good reason. After the eggs hatch, the mother octopus dies, continuing on in this sad aquatic circle of life. Looks like these baby octopuses are on their own. The babies, known as larvae when they hatch, drift around in plankton clouds, eating other larvae until they hatch. Live Science states that they're in danger of being eaten by other plankton eaters at the time too. It's one rough road to maturity for these guys. Number 8. Otters. Next up are baby otters. These playful little guys are also called puppies and only weigh a fourth of a cup of water when born. Born blind, otters take 40 days to open their eyes and another 40 before they can learn to swim. Mum is usually in charge of swim training and teaching her babies to walk. They'll stay really close to their mother for a year before gaining a bit of independence. Even then, otters will live with their families, play with one another, and be sociable. They're also so smart that some fishermen have trained them to lure fish to nets. Number 7. Snow monkey. Snow monkeys, also known as Japanese macaque, have cute pink-faced and wide-eyed babies that look quite different from their parents. Unfortunately, adorable as they may be, these monkeys are considered pests by some, causing more than 15.4 million in damages to crops and infrastructure annually, often in Japan. Mother snow monkeys are excellent protection to their babies and are very doting and loving. However, it's the younger siblings that dominate their older siblings, and the female child outranks any other monkey. Younger siblings always win with this species. Their thick fur allows snow monkeys to truly live up to their name and effectively deal with temperatures as low as -4 degrees Fahrenheit. Animal Spot explains that this is why these monkeys love hot water baths so much. These natural hot water springs help them deal with the snow-covered mountains they inhabit. Number 6. Lamb. Baby sheep or lambs just had to make our list. Look at those sweet, fluffy ears. For about a month after birth, these little guys are hungry, requiring about 20% of their body weight in milk every day. As they weigh between 5 to 8 pounds when born, that's 1 to 1.6 pounds of milk. Though they've got a big appetite, lambs don't have a cry to match. Instead of baaing, they let out a high-pitched bleating sound instead. They're born with tails too, but shed them as they grow up. Plus, though lambs' teeth come in eventually, they only ever have teeth on their lower palate. Talk about an underbite. Ram lambs will reach maturity between 4 to 6 months old, whereas a ewe lamb will reach maturity between 6 to 8 months. Fun fact, even growing lambs have their own name. Lamb is the name for babies. Hoggets is the name for when they're about 1 or 2 years old, and rams and ewes are the adults. Number 5. Giraffe calves. Another hungry baby animal is the giraffe. Known as calves, these little guys aren't as small as you'd think. They can be 6 feet tall when born. That height must come in handy when, according to National Geographic, their mother gives birth standing up, meaning the new baby can fall as much as 5 feet. An hour after birth, baby giraffes are walking off that drop though, typically only lying down to wait for their mum if she goes off to take some me time. Just kidding. But really, mother giraffes will take turns watching over the new baby. About 3 to 6 years old, the calves are fully mature. Their spots, just like human fingerprints, are unique to that animal, and in the wild, they'll often make bird friends, tick birds or oxpeckers, that eat the bugs living in their one-of-a-kind coat. Number 4. Piglet. Baby pigs are so cute that plenty of people want one of their own. Mini pigs, micro pigs, pocket pigs, and teacup pigs, whatever you may know them as, have become incredibly popular in recent years. Even the smallest pigs can get pretty big though, and these vocal animals might be trickier to take care of than they look when they're adorable piglets. As babies, their mothers will even sing to them when nursing. How sweet is that? Newborn piglets will learn to run towards their mother's voices, and pigs have more than 20 distinct grunts to use in order to communicate. After nursing for about 3 to 5 weeks, piglets are weaned and earn the name shoats, like how lambs grow into hoggets before adulthood. Though their eyesight is poor, pigs have a great sense of smell, and like a typical family dog, their snout is sensitive to touch. They've also got a bad rap for being dirty when, in their natural habitat, pigs are actually quite clean animals. Sure, they'll roll around in the mud to cool off, but if a pig isn't too warm, they won't need to. Number 3. Porcupine. Baby porcupines win today's award for the cutest sound and the cutest name, because these porcupets sound like Yogi from Mario combined with a creaky door. It's hard to explain, but heartbreakingly adorable. As sweet as they are, porcupets are strong babies. It's not as if their spiky mamas can carry them around, so their soft quills harden to protect themselves just hours after birth. Other sources say it might take a few days for them to really gain those classic spikes, but either way, it won't be long before porcupets can fend for themselves. Once they do grow up, porcupines will have an average of 30,000 quills mixed in with their soft hairs. A group of porcupines is called a family, just like humans. Though they can't shoot their quills at predators, as scales and barbs make them genuinely hard to remove, porcupines can regrow their quills if they must. Number 3. Skunk kits. Another baby animal that goes by the name kits are baby skunks. Even though you definitely don't want to mess with skunks when they're grown, they're pretty adorable as babies. Kits are born blind and leave their den between 10 to 12 months old. Skunks only live about 3 years in the wild, so that means about a third of their life is spent at home before they go off to make their own family. Though some people may believe skunks spray randomly and easily, they'll often give attackers plenty of warning by stomping their legs and hissing. Spotted skunks can even do a handstand on their front paws and aim their tail when they spray. Number 2. Hedgehog. Baby hedgehogs or piglets or even hoglets weigh less than 1 ounce at birth. That's teeny! Horrifyingly, the father might try to eat their baby, so mums protect their piglets until they're 4 to 7 weeks old. Around 9 to 11 months old, they're fully mature and tend to live until 3 to 8 years old in the wild. Most of that life is spent sleeping for up to 18 hours a day. At night, they'll search for food, which usually consists of fruit, fungi, centipedes, insects, snails, and things of that nature. No wonder they sleep so much. Hedgehogs can eat 1/3 of their body weight in one night. Who wouldn't be sleepy after eating that much food? Fun facts: hedgehogs are lactose intolerant. They used to be called urchins, and there's 15 different species of hedgehogs in the world. Number 1. Elephant. If you like the movie Dumbo, you'll love our number 1 pick. Baby elephants. Also known as calves, these baby elephants weigh about 250 pounds when born. That's one giant baby. As a bit of a fun fact, did you know that 99% of calves are born in the evening or at night? They're also 3 feet tall with curly black or red hair on their foreheads and massive appetites. Calves can drink 3 gallons of milk a day, and it doesn't stop there. They keep drinking milk for up to 10 years, though they do start eating from plants around 4 months old. That's after they learn how to use their trunk, of course. Baby elephants don't really know what to do with them, so they swing them, step on them, and even suck their trunk trying to figure it out. It'll take about 6 to 8 months before they can control it. Though male calves are ready to leave when they're 12 to 14 years old, female calves stay in the herd for life. Thank you so much for watching this video about our top 10 picks for the most adorable baby animals on the planet. Are there any animals we've missed? What is the cutest baby animal out there in your opinion? Let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you're new and want more interesting animal content just like this. Next, you can also check out this video if you want to learn more about incredibly cute animals that are actually deadly.